Hey there everyone, Paul with Blackwater Honey Forge. I wanted to take a moment and go through my sugar syrup feeding rig setup in hopes that maybe it'll help anyone out that's looking to make one for themselves. If you're sick of feeding with 5-gallon buckets and funnels or garden spouts or whatever the heck you're doing right now, and you want something that is far more efficient with a little bit of upfront cost, I'm going to go through my system and I'm going to explain what all the components cost me as well. So the main driver of this system is the SEAFLO pump that I have here in this black tote that I have to keep the rain off the pump and the electrical. So I'll explain some of these components here in a moment, but I want to open this up and show you the pump. So the pump is a 12-volt SEAFLO 5.5 gallon per minute water pump. And the reason why I went with a water pump is before I used to have a diesel pump, and with the diesel pump there was no pressure switch on it. So when power was run to the pump would run all the time. On these pumps that are set up for water pumps, the pressure switch means that once the line builds pressure, once my hose builds pressure, the pump shuts off. Every time I go to fill a feeder, the pump will then turn back on. So it cycles appropriately. So SEAFLO, see right there, 60 psi, 5.5 gallons per minute. That I have set up on a battery that I had already owned for a number of years now on my 12-volt deep cycle battery. I didn't take that into account on the cost today, but just know that battery off Amazon cost me about, I believe about $60. I have all my wiring set up right here. Basically, I have a solar panel. What you'll see is I have the power for the pump that goes on. It has an inline fuse. It also has an inline on and off switch as well. And then I just have the connections for my little solar panel connected right to that. The solar panel I got from Harbor Freight on super discount. It was like, I think, $35 for the solar panel. And that I ended up getting for about $15. And then I got this little charge controller here to make sure it doesn't overcharge the battery. The charge controller, I think, was 14 bucks. So again, I'll go over the totals here in a moment. Now, so that's all set for that. I'll kind of go around the other side of my trailer here. So I have a hose reel with 75 feet of 3/4 inch hose. You're going to get a much better flow out of 3/4 inch hose. And that has kind of like a gas station discharge style pump. The hose reel, again, I'll go over the cost here in a moment. But if you want a really good metal one that is you can screw down, that wasn't cheap. That was about $100. I have this whole setup set up on pallets, a base pallet that I can move, and my pressure, excuse me, not my pressure tank. My storage tank is a 40-gallon, and I have that elevated a little bit so that way it'll gravity feed better to the pump. I also, if you can tell, I have a floor mat underneath this tank. This is technically my second tank. The first tank I had just on the pallet itself, and it actually got a hole rubbed down here in the base. And the company was great enough that they warranted me and just sent me a brand new tank. So I would recommend putting something soft or rubber, or just protect the bottom of your tank in some manner. So the tank, as I mentioned, 40 gallon on the tank. I do have a little bit of sugar syrup in here from last week. Not last week. Well, let's see. It was about 5 days ago. So that's really all in all the guts. The tank, which feeds the pump feeds the hose reel, and then I have the discharge hose right here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to walk right back over here again. I'm going to turn my pump on. And I have 1 gallon in-frame feeders. So at 5.5 gallons per minute, this takes about 12 to 14 seconds to fill up the gallon. But as you can see, much more efficient than pouring out of a 5-gallon bucket and then going to refill your bucket. A lot less lifting and everything else. So let's go ahead now and get that set. Pull this up. Put the top back on. I don't want any bees flying in there. It is early in the morning, but I do have a little bit of bee flight going on. And let's go ahead and share the Post-it note. So on the Post-it note, the pump was about $120. The wiring for the pump was about another $10. The hose, well, all the hoses together cost me about $100. The reel that the hose sits on cost me another $100. The tank was $100, and all of the solar, both the charge controller and the solar panel, was about $35. So all said and done, total investment, because I already owned the pallets, I already owned the old junk tote. Total investment was about $465. Now, if you also have to buy a battery for that as well, again, that battery I bought cost about $65. So that would be about $525. So it's not all that cheap, but if you're going to be feeding a good amount of hives and you're sick of picking up 5-gallon buckets or whatnot, it makes it a much more efficient experience. So if you put something together, show me a picture of it. Let me know how it turns out for you. Good luck. Be well. Forge on.